Hey everybody, I'm That One Guy, and I wanted to create a series of videos to go over the Weakauras I've created. The whole purpose of the Weakauras is obviously to help you better understand your spec and hopefully help you play better as a result, but also to gamify the game. Because WoW does present you with some spell alerts for the specs you play, but not all. And so that leaves you looking for ways to identify if a certain buff or debuff is active. And that's where Weakauras can come in play. And I wanted to do more than just have an icon with a timer in it, right? I wanted to try to present you with visual effects that make it feel more like a video game and immerse you more into the spec you're playing. At least that's the idea. So in these videos, I'm going to go over the Weakauras I've created, how I intend for them to work, and show you how you can modify them if you'd like. So whether you've already found my Weakauras, or you're looking for some for a certain spec, or you just want to have a better idea of how Weakauras work in general, hopefully these videos will help you with that. Devastation Evokers, Devokers. I had a lot of fun making yours. I got a little creative with some things, and like there's some pretty images I made, and I'm always a fan of that. Very biased, obviously. But we're just going to go through all the Weakauras. I know it looks like a lot. You can right-click and delete anything, or I can show you how to move some stuff, change its color if that'll fit your preference better, or even just set its load conditions to never if you don't already know. But basically, I just kind of gave you all of the options, and you can kind of pull it back and pare it down as you'd like. That's kind of the intent behind these. Is I know it's not a one-size-fits-all, not everybody's going to like everything, but I'd rather give you the option to track something and then just delete it or modify it to your tastes, rather than, just kind of leave it out. So we'll just start with Essence, right? Pretty simple Essence tracker. These are for the hero talents, and I'll get those at the end. But Essence, this is just obviously an Essence tracker. When there's 5, it'll be nicely spaced out with just the 5. Whenever you take the talent to have 6, it's spaced out like that. It's red because of a condition. There's a lot of conditions, but let's go to it. It's red because of condition, in that whenever you take the talent for Charged Blast, I saw that like one of the conditions for, I think, Scalecommander AoE was if you have over 12 stacks of Charged Blast, then you want to cast Pyre. That's one of the priorities in the priority list. So when that's true, they'll be red. When that's not true, they'll just be that regular Essence color right there. And there's a bunch of other Weakauras you can see, but that's what it'll be. And then it's only red whenever that one condition is true. So just kind of helping take away the having to think about some stuff. Essence Burst, regular. I'll skip down to Snapfire, regular. Right, those are the only 2 spell alerts that Blizz gives you when you're playing Devastation Evoker. Everything else is essentially spell alerts or Weakauras that I've added that I feel like kind of enhance the gameplay, at least visually for me, and that I enjoy. Hover. I realize that's something that's really nice to know the duration of. So it's this progress texture of wings. Again, if you don't like it, you can right-click and delete it. It'll be gone. You could also, if you're not sure about it, go to the load tab and set its conditions to never. And while we're here, I'm going to set its conditions to only show up when you're Devastation Evoker. There you go. And if you wanted to change its color, you're like, I want it to match the color of the wings of the dragon I am. Well, you can go to the display tab, and it's this foreground color right here, and you can just change that to whatever you like. Like, since I'm purple, I could make those purple, and now it imitates just the same color wings that my dragon has. Okay. Fire Breath, little CD tracker. When Fire Breath is off cooldown, you'll see that icon. When Eternity Surge is off cooldown, you'll see that icon. When Shattering Star is off cooldown, you'll see that icon. Right? It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Where your eyes are going to be on your Essence, or your eyes are going to be on the game. Because as I was telling a friend the other day, you can look at all the same stuff on your bars or down here, and you can get all that same information. But then you're not seeing the game, and you realize there's a lot of cool animations and spell animations that your character does that you're probably just missing. And I felt that way playing one of my characters when my friend said, wow, that's a really cool spell animation. I wish my class had that. And I had no idea what it was because I had never looked at my character while playing before. I had always just stared at my bars. So I've been trying to get my eyes up to really just watch the game. And I think it also helps you engage better with mechanics and when there's kicks and things that need to be done because your eyes are here instead of just focusing on when your stuff comes off cooldown, when you can use it. My 2 cents. Tip the scales, this is where we get into like optional stuff. It's a 2-minute cooldown. So maybe you don't really need to track it, but what it'll do is you'll see that gold ring kind of light up behind Fire Breath and Eternity Surge. When they're not there, there will just be gold rings sitting in their place. But it's just a visual cue to you that, hey, tip the scales is available. If you don't like that, you're like, I don't need to know. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Again, right click and delete. Not gonna hurt my feelings. Not gonna hurt the Weakauras. Or you can just go to the load conditions and set it to never. Okay. Deep breath, another optional one. Like, it's a minute cooldown, but I just kind of felt like as I was playing, I was like, it's so core to the rotation, at least definitely for Scalecommander, and important for Flameshaper as well. But so core to the rotation, I was like, it's nice to have a little visual. Again, same deal. You can right click and delete, or go to the load tab and set it to never. If you decide that color is jacked up and wonky, you can go to the display tab and change its color right there. Burnout. Something that I think is incredibly important to the spec. And that the only indication that Blizz gives you that you have it is your living flame glows, right? You're like, oh, okay. I guess that means that must be its instant cast, but you don't know how many charges of it you have. You don't know its duration of it. So you'll see these two icons indicating how many stacks you have of burnout, and when it turns like white, I think that means there is less than 4 seconds. So when there's 4 seconds or less left on that buff burnout, they'll turn white, kind of like, you know, hey, these are about to expire. If you want to change when that triggers, it's in this conditions tab. You can click on burnout, go to the conditions tab, and see its remaining duration is less than and equal to 4. If you'd like to know when that's 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 10 seconds, or just turn it off entirely, right? You can just click this X and delete it, and it'll be fine, right? Because as long as you don't mess with anything in the triggers, the conditions just kind of add optional features to it, like see how it turns white. That's why you're noticing too that the Snapfire turned white and your Essence Burst turned white, is because same thing. You go to the conditions tab and see those are set when there's less than 5 seconds or less. Essence Burst will turn white. Again, you can make that 4. You can make them all the same number so that you know you're getting the same visual cues. But again, I'm just kind of thinking, you know, a few channels worth. Whenever there's 5 seconds or less for Essence Burst, they'll turn white, just letting you know, hey, they're going to expire. Same thing is true for Snapfire. 5 seconds or less, it's turning white, letting you know, hey, that's about to expire. Just kind of adding to the visual effects that Blizz already provides. Because I know you get these spell alerts, but that's why I recreate them. One, I just play all my specs at 0% spell opacity, so I just kind of recreate what's already there. It lets me be in control of the size and location of the Weakauras, but also be able to add optional features like this, where when it's about to expire, I don't have to look up at my buff bar and see like how much time is left on that. I'll just know visually I'm either good because it's not white or it turned white, and I don't have to worry about when it's coming. Okay. So that was for burnout, and then this would be for the talent Feed the Flame. Whenever you get to, I think it's your, let's just look at the talent. Oop, there it is. Whenever you get to, yeah, after casting 9 pyres, right, it's going to do a firestorm with it. So how that one will work is when you've triggered that buff, when you have cast I think your 9th pyre, and now your next one is going to trigger a firestorm, you'll see these images of dragons, right? Fire-breathing dragons pop up on your screen. Just another visual cue instead of like, where am I at? Which number am I on? Is that going to happen? And maybe you don't care to really track it. I think that's kind of more just like a nice to know thing. Like it's just kind of a fun video game feedback where you know, oh look, my next pyre is going to do a firestorm. And if you don't see those, it's not. It's pretty straightforward. Again, if you don't like it, you can delete it. You can set its load conditions to never. If you want to change the color, it gets a little more complicated because it's multiple, it's 2 things stacked on top of each other. And so you'd have to change the color of each thing individually if you didn't like it, or you wanted a different color. Like if you wanted to match your dragon, right? Your purple dragon. I want those dragon heads to be purple. You can do it, just might take a little bit of effort. And then again, as you see a theme here, right? This one's when there's less than 10 seconds. I think because the buff is like 30 seconds or longer. It seems like a pretty long buff. But this one would be when there's 10 seconds or less. It'll turn white. If you want to change that, depending on like, you know, you're thinking of your, as you're doing M plus, you know, maybe you only care if there's 5 seconds or less. I'm thinking, hey, if there's 10 seconds or less, and you know that, you can decide if that buff is going to fall off before you pull the next pack, or if you're even going to get max use out of it on the current pack you're in. Like if everything's almost dead, that'd probably be a waste. But if, you know, everything's not almost dead, or there's a whole lot of time between when you're even going to get to the next pull, it just gives you a little more information on when you can use those things. Imminent destruction, just a little timer. Sometimes boring and simple is best. Dragon Rage, just a little timer. Just showing how long you're in that. And then just the cast bar. You'll have to let me know on the cast bar if it does the empowered markers correctly. If you ever see anything wrong with it, or it's not lining up how it's supposed to, let me know and I can try to adjust it. That one was basically just a trial and error to see when stuff was right. As for the hero talents, right, I said I'd go back to them at the end. Mass Disintegrate, whenever you have that, you'll know, right, because it's after your empowered spells. But again, I'm thinking more like a video game visual feedback. It just lets you know, yes, the thing you expect to be active is active, and then after you've consumed it, yes, it's gone. It doesn't deal with like stacks, so you could do back-to-back empowered spells and stack the Mass Disintegrate twice, and so there wouldn't be anything to know there other than your own, you know, mental capacity to know you cast 2 empowered spells. I can add that, right? It can change colors, or the left one can be 1 stack and the right one can be 2, but it does seem like more often than not you're doing Disintegrate after you cast an empowered spell, so you only ever have 1 charge at a time. But if that's some functionality you'd like to add, let me know. You definitely put that in there pretty simply. Burning Adrenaline, a buff you get from casting your Engulf, right? We'll show there. This one does have 1 stack, 2 stack. So again, if you wanted to do the same thing for Mass Disintegrate, can do that. But if you have 1 stack of Burning Adrenaline, you'll see that on the left. If you have 2 stacks, you'll see it on the right. And then the thing that I thought was so pretty and cool was Engulf. These are your Engulf charges. If you don't like that, you're like, I don't care. I'll figure out how many charges I have myself. You can right-click and delete it. But otherwise, you'll see these 2 emblems, which I think look pretty cool. It's a little dragon and a, you know, glowing red orb inside of it. Just like just looks neat. Kind of looks on brand. Kind of trying to go with the theme. All right, so this would be kind of like what it looks like for the Scalecommander single target spec, right? You don't have Charge Blast. You don't have Font of Magic, so your empowered spells only go up to 3 instead of 4. You don't have Feed the Flames or Firestorm, so you won't have Snapfire. So when you enter combat, right now this will show till you enter combat, right? And you can see Fire Breath, Shattering Star, Eternity Surge, and Deep Breath, right? All right there. Your amount of essence. This tells me I have a proc of burnouts, right? So I have an instant cast Living Flame. I have another instant cast Living Flame. The only stuff you won't see would be like your Dragon Rage. Like that's just a cooldown you'd have to track for yourself. But you can also kind of faintly see the golden glow, letting you know that Tip the Scales is active. So ours off cooldown and you could use it, right? So if you use that, even then the gold's still there because you haven't consumed it yet, it would go away. This would be letting you know you have your Mass Disintegrate from the hero talents. All right, if you wanted to hover, right, you can see how much time you have left on hover right there. And again, these are our cooldowns for Shattering Star, Eternity Surge. You saw the bar for the empowered spell. I knew that would happen. I would fly into some trees and not be able to see anything. You use your Deep Breath. And I think you might have just seen there that the burnouts went white, right? Because they are about to expire. But yeah, you can see like here's stuff all coming back up off cooldown. That's been off cooldown for a minute now. And like I was saying, if you have 2 mass disintegrates, but there's no functionality to show that yet. If that's something you'd like, you can definitely do that. But your burnout procs, essence burst stuff, essences, and then again, like if you have Dragon Rage active, you'll see like the duration of it down there at the bottom, right? So that would be it as far as like what this looks like in single target, right? And then just kind of how it works with the hero talents for Scalecommander. If you want to know more about like the I think it's the bombardiers, the bombardment stuff, and when those are active, I figure there's that visual and then a bunch of dragons flying overhead, right? There are my Deep Breath is back. still have hover going for just a little bit. I guess that'd be one other thing too, is you'll have to keep track of your own hover charges, right? I don't have anything on the screen to tell you how many there are. Just like I said, essence disintegrates. Living Flame are instant cast Living Flames from burnout, right? And remember, it goes white, that means it's close to expiring. The only other thing that would really change in AoE, or only, but I know one thing that would really change in AoE is then you take Charge Blast. So that's the one that I was saying when you have over 12 stacks of that, because I was seeing in the rotation guide it said when you have over 12 stacks of that, then you can cast Pyre. Your essence will turn red. All the same stuff, right? Tracking all your cooldowns. Still have Mastery and all that same stuff, right? This tells me Tip the Scales is active. But when I have over 12 stacks of Charge Blast, you saw my essence turns red, right? Like, hey, you can cast your Pyre because that criteria specifically has been met. And everything else is still the same. That would be kind of like the one change, is adding the functionality for Charge Blast, as far as how the Weakura is different when you're in your single target spec for Scalecommander versus AoE. And then what would change when you're in the entirely other different hero talent. One, now your Empower spells will go up to 4. And this is what I was saying, like, let me know if any of that's ever off. Because, like, those should line up correctly. Those tick marks, like, I had to add them myself. So those should line up correctly. But if not, it ever seems like they're off. Like, I'm not sure if when you have Lust active and maybe PI and stuff, if those shift off incorrectly. But it should always line up. Otherwise, let me know. But same thing is true, right? You have... This stuff won't show until you're in combat. The added change is that these are your Engulf charges, letting you know how many charges of Engulf you have, obviously. The only thing that I could add that I know I didn't add, and I would just have to find room for it. Like you saw, like when you see where all of the Weakuras are, there can be a lot. Would just be like what dots you have active on your target. I think there's Enkindle from your Living Flame, the Fire Breath dot, and then that's, it says, and then you could use Engulf, and it's like, all right, you could probably set up a condition too to like make these Engulf charges gray or desaturated, and then light up a color like this when those conditions are met. That'd be one way to do it, and like again, save screen real estate, still have these same charges, but have another visual cue to cast those, or again can just put something somewhere on here that shows you the duration of those dots on your target. As someone who doesn't play Devastation Evoker all the time, like I said, I haven't been able to play test it and figure out what I'd prefer. Maybe the actual act of activating your Engulf properly is not that challenging. You don't need to track it. But let me know in the comments if you think that, and I kind of liking the idea of maybe having those Engulfs kind of grayed out or saturated, and then fill and look that color when those conditions are met. Just because, one, you'll still know how many you have, but then two, you'll know that extra step, that extra condition to know there's dots on your target. So here, with the Empowered, already showed that. And that's kind of the difference here, is right that you've got Engulfs now, and when you also have Engulf, that isn't on my bars, I don't think. Nope, that's not helpful. As you consume them, you get your Burning Adrenaline, right? 1 stack, 2 stacks. Just, your next cast stuff is accelerated. As you use it, then it'll go away. So that's kind of one of the changes, is that obviously the hero talent's different, so you have a new ability and it gives you a new buff. And then what's tracked as far as the buffs, I put it in the same spot, right? So the hero talents are visually you're already used to looking for a hero talent buff there. But then also the fact that, at least with this talent loadout, when you're taking the Font of Magic, your empowered spells go up to 4 instead of 3. And so just trying to make sure I have the tick marks lined up. For AoE for this one is when you get into the other bits of the Weakura pack, where now there is Snapfire and now there is Feed the Flames. And so as you're building that up, you can see it's counting all the way up right after 7 more. So it will not show. Oh, no, yeah, if you don't have any essence, that's you can't cast anymore. But it won't show until you get to actually part of the buff where it's going to activate that Firestorm. The other thing I'm trying to do is show the Snapfire. Eventually I'll get that to show up. Just not right this second. Ta-da! A few more pyres, and then you can see that it, and by it I mean the Feed the Flames buff, will be active. I think it's this one. Yeah, there you go. So that lets me know that my next pyre is going to cast a firestorm at that location. That's it. And if I left it up there long enough, it would eventually turn white, desaturated, and let you know that, hey, this buff is kind of close to expiring. Again, that's kind of the theme with everything. Again, if stuff turns white, that means it's expiring or going to expire soon. And then that's pretty much it. Again, I didn't get the Snapfire thing, but you have that one. You know what that does. All right. And if it were expiring again, it would turn white. So that's everything in the pack. All right, that's kind of how it's all designed to work. And again, it looks like a lot when you're looking at this, but when you're actually playing, it's just pieces of information at a time. That's just supposed to help kind of offload some of that mental stuff where it's like keeping track of when these are coming up off cooldown. You'll just see an image on your screen that it's off cooldown, right? And keeping track of your essence is more where I think your eyes should be. So maybe that's a preference of mine, but you can move that. I guess that's one last thing I'll show you real quick, is if you wanted to move anything in this display tab, it's position and size settings, and it's the X and Y offset, right? So as you move stuff up or down, that would be just how you move things. That's it. But if you have any questions on it, you feel like I left something out, like we're talking about with the tracking of the dots for Flameshaper or anything like that, if there's something that needs to be included or changed or you need help figuring anything out, just let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to help. Again, I hope you found that helpful. I do intend to make a Weakura pack for every spec. So if I haven't made one for the spec that you play or that you'd like to see, just comment that down below. Again, I do intend to make one for every spec, but if I see people asking for it or really wanting one, I'll probably get to it quicker than if I do it on my slow, leisurely pace. I hope it will enhance your gameplay. Like I said, it's all about gamifying the game and making it more fun and more immersive for you, while also helping you improve as a player because the information that you need to react to is hopefully more readily available. If you have any other questions about this Weakura pack that you just watched or any other ones, again, please feel free to comment. I try to be as interactive as possible in my YouTube section. And that's it. I hope you have a great day.